Hi everyone. Um, my name's Andreas Solorsino, and I'm here to do my hot topic presentation on PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support. So, what is PBIS? The definition of PBIS, it's an implementation framework for maximizing the selection and use of evidence-based prevention and intervention practices along a multi-tiered continuum that supports academic, social, emotional, and behavioral competence of all students. So essentially, it's a three-tiered framework that just helps support students so that they are getting the best academic outcomes, the best behavior outcomes, and just maximizing their time in the classroom instead of getting sent out because of a referral or getting sent out because of a suspension, and really just helping them be the best students that they can. So, just a little history on PBIS, and in particular the PBIS Center. So, PBIS really started in the 90s and it was supported for the past 20 years by the Office of Special Education Programs. So, this is a government funded program that has been around for a while. And as of 2013, PBIS is in 70 local educational agencies, 20 school or state educational agencies, um, and it supports over 25,000 schools, which represents over 13 million students. So PBIS does have a huge effect on students and really has gone into a lot of schools, although there's still so many more schools that PBIS has yet to reach. Now, the most important thing about PBIS is reaching a level of fidelity, which just means faithfulness to the program and just full support by staff and everyone on campus. And as of 2016 to 2017, 65% of 14,000 schools report high fidelity in the first tier of PBIS, and of 9,407 reporting, about 3,114 and 1,837 report high fidelity, respectively, for Tier 2 and Tier 3. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about what those tiers are because those essentially are what PBIS, and it's important to understand how those tiers affect each different aspect of a school. So how is PBIS structured? So at its very core, PBIS has three tiers. The first tier at the very bottom, tier 1, is the entire school setting, which is about 75 to 85% of the students. So it's school wide. It's responsible for setting the expectation, for recognizing students, and just teaching social emotional skills. The second tier is a selected group of individuals, normally about 10 to 20%, and that deals in small group settings to give an entire small group strategies to help with their behavior, to help them so that they can be put back into the general education classroom with just more skills to help them be better prepared. Then finally, we have our highest tier, which is usually about 3 to 5% of kids, which is tier 3. And those are the individual targeted, these really intense students that need individualized interventions for high risk behaviors. So these could be kids who have psychoanalytic issues, they might be suicidal, they could be dealing with they could be lacking a lot more skills compared to the second tier and the first tier. So just remember, as the tier gets higher, it interventions become more individualized and selected to from the entire school to small groups to small individuals. So what are the core elements of each tier in PBIS? So again, I gave a little background for how PBIS is structured, but specifically each tier deals with has specific elements that are relevant just to that specific tier. So tier 1 support core elements. Now, again, like I said, tier 1 deals with an entire school setting. So for the entire school, you would want to make sure that behavior expectations are defined and are taught. So in particular, that could be what your school's core values are. What are you teaching your students are the behaviors that you are expecting from them. I included my school's core values because when we try to teach our students how to be an eagle, we teach them to have integrity, to have kindness, to have eagerness to learn, motivation, ownership, and being respectful. And throughout the day or in the classroom, teachers and staff should try to acknowledge students for being any of those things, or acknowledge a student if they're not living up to those standards. Tier 1 also includes um, giving out proper consequences, whether that's a reward or a reinforcer for appropriate behavior, or giving a consequence for problem behavior. And it's really important that that is very specified out for the entire school so that everyone knows what's a major behavior problem and what's a minor behavior problem. And one of the most important things about tier 1 and every tier is just continuous monitoring, collection, and use of data to make decisions. Without data to make decisions, PBIS falls apart. And if we don't have the data to support the um, practices we're doing, then it's really difficult to identify students, or it's really difficult to identify how we can best help an entire school. The next tier, tier 2, like I said earlier, this deals with small group settings. Um, and this is an early universal screening of individuals and what could be their behavior problems. Um, it's a system for really increasing structure and predictability among these students. So identifying them and keeping them in an area where they can just have more support and they can have more interventions compared to in the general classroom. And it helps link their academic and their behaviors together so that they know that their behavior is affecting their academics. It also is really important for this system to have an increased home and school communication so that parents are aware that this is what is going on with their student or their child. This is how they are trying to be helped in the classroom, and how that at home they could help support the interventions that are being made for them. Finally, the last tier, tier 3's core elements. Again, like I mentioned earlier, that deals with just very straightforward and one on one intervention with an individual. And this could be a team effort, it could be a one on one collaboration between the student and a mentor, but usually there are a lot of key factors that come into play, like administration, a school psychologist, a counselor, and the student, the parents. So it's really a team effort to help the individualized student in preventing the problem, giving them functional skills to so that they can reach a desired performance, helping give them strategies to face a problem or an expectation, or just strategies to help them so that they can get a reward for a desired behavior. And again, like all three of these other tiers, it's really important that data is being collected on that individual, on students, so that decisions are being made properly. If it's really hard to make a decision on how to help a student if there's no data, because then how are you supposed to know what will work best for them without any sort of background on the child? Finally, just what does PBIS look like in the classroom? Because to me, PBIS is the most important in a classroom setting, because the teachers need to know how to acknowledge their kids and how to make sure that their kids are meeting their expectations and being acknowledged appropriately. So a lot of times teachers have to do these five things in this little structure that I gave you. So making sure that students are engaged, maximizing the structure of your class, setting expectations and rules for students, and then the last two, responding to inappropriate behavior, which sometimes teachers just kind of let slide by. And it's really important that teachers identify when there is an inappropriate behavior occurring. And then finally, which teachers don't do enough of, acknowledge appropriate behavior using your school core values. So if I have a student who, let's call him Jimmy, and Jimmy does something kind to another student, it would be appropriate for me to say, Jimmy, thank you for showing kindness, for helping Luna and giving her a pencil, and acknowledging what expectation they made, what how that appropriate behavior was, and just giving them good props for doing what they were supposed to do in the classroom. Finally, here are my references that I use for this presentation. I hope that you guys learned something about PBIS. It's a topic I'm really passionate about, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Thank you.